This is the Alphas. My name is Chase. This is Kai. This is Justin. This is Mia. And I'll be going over our purpose and meaning behind choosing Chapter 5. Part 5 is called Adopting Conflict Strategies. It is based on several key factors that shape how parties choose to behave during a conflict. The first topic is goals and interest. This is about what each side wants to achieve, strongly influences the strategies they adopt. For example, goals focused on changing behavior may lead to coercion. Goals focused on changing behavior may lead to coercion, while goals centered on the mutual gain may favor persuasion. The next topic is characteristics and resources of the parties. This focuses on factors such as power, organizational capacity, leadership, beliefs, and available resources affect which strategies are possible or attractive. The third topic is relationships between the adversaries. Past interactions shape the choices you make, and long-term relationships often disencourage extreme coercion. The fourth topic is social and institutional comfort. This means broader cultural norms, laws, political systems, and third-party influences also guide which conflict strategies are acceptable or effective. We chose this topic because it is extremely important to be able to pick up conflict strategies no matter what type of position you choose in your life. You are going to deal with conflict, so it is important to have strategies in any situation you are put into. And this chapter shows that there are techniques to sort of calm down the altercation and end your problem. These are critical to having any sort of human relation.
So our group picked chapter 5 to go over. It's broken down into two main different points. The first point talks about how escalation, there's different things that can affect escalation, and then how ultimately that ends in a resolution. So first, it talks about what initiates a conflict. So this can be any underlying issues, such as people not being heard, people feeling left out or abandoned by the group, people feeling they don't get the same status looked at, I guess. It emphasizes that both positions can affect the conflict strategy. If both come into it wanting to learn, grow, and really fix the problem, then a conflict will be easily reached. Whereas if one comes in thinking that their idea is the best idea and there's no changing their mind, then it can lead to it being more of a destructive conflict where emotions run high and people's feelings begin to overlay the fact that they're actually trying to reach a conflict instead of being constructive, where both sides join together and mix ideas to hopefully find the best one. In a destructive conflict, people use coercion into forcing their ideas upon others, whereas in a constructive conflict, they can use either more of a persuasion, which is trying to sway someone's beliefs in a non-violent way, or even a reward system where people offer different incentives for others to see their way more favorably. So obviously people who pick who look to resolve a conflict will use more of a cooperative strategy. That's why they're more attractive. Um, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the main points. So that brings us to our next point, whereas the relationship between the two parties or two entities can really affect how the conflict the interactions go. So, for example, um, if two parties are in conflict and they have a relationship that's more cooperative or more not even really cooperative, it's just being able to hear the other side without immediately reacting, it can lead to um, it can lead to them of trying to avoid any highly destructive strategies like coercion. It can lead to not relationships, to resolutions being met in a more timely and more effective manner. Whereas entities um, that share lots of hostility can lead more toward destructive strategies, like I said earlier, coercion, which can lead to high levels of stress, high levels of intensity, and um, high level of violent actions, which obviously, as violent actions grow and emotions and feelings become more involved, uh, a, con- a resolution to a conflict that everyone can agree on becomes a whole lot harder to maintain. Um, Things like cultural norms, laws, political systems, or just overall feelings towards the conflict and the two entities make it very difficult sometimes. So, like, the best way I can describe it is the more two entities are the more things they believe in, like the same. So, like, as far as like the culture being relatively close, or having the same political views or the same views on the laws, can make it a whole lot easier to reach a conclusion. Whereas two that are like two sides of the same coin, which they don't see things in the same way, can make it a whole lot harder to reach a conclusion that both sides can agree on. This chapter underscores the strategies and conditions that can help in situations where two sides really don't see the same way. It helps being able to not fully change an entity's way of looking at something, but instead alter it a little bit to where it's not black and white. It's where these two different things can find a gray area where they can both be happy in the resolution to the conflict.
All right, so for the salient point, we put in conclusion, the key takeaway from the chapter is that adopting conflict strategies is a complex and adaptable process shaped by goals, resources, relationships, and context. So to have it be an adaptable process and have certain goals that are need to be reached is to have communication for the whole entity as a whole to be collaborative and kind of accommodate each other's needs when trying to figure out how to get away from the conflict. Certain resources would be like either staying organized within a time range, staying organized overall. I really should just say organization as a whole is pretty solid, and relationships right there is pretty important too because you got to build relationships to actually have a way to keep going and not kind of just focus on having friction between y'all, but rather focus on creating a environment where it's healthy and it's going to prosper. And context is important because you're able to dive deeper into um, pretty much anything that's going on. So giving it background context, you're able to gain more knowledge, gain more information, and really just adapt to the situation as a whole. Understanding why people choose certain strategies provides insight into how conflicts escalate or move toward resolution. So yeah, so if you're providing insight and you're trying to focus on moving towards a resolution when in a conflict, you're able to really just gain that knowledge that everyone needs and is able to proceed with following to get to a solution and the final point. Recognizing these influences, individuals, leaders, and mediators can identify opportunities to encourage more constructive strategies that reduce escalation and increase the potential for cooperative and integrative outcomes. Yes, pretty much like I said earlier, like try to focus on the relationship you have with someone else and with the group as a whole is really going to push the whole conflict narrative kind of out the window and rather focus on a collaborative way to just focus on your cognitive thinking and grow past that. Really, there's not going to be any subtle background issues that might pop up, but rather if you put them forward at first, then you kind of avoid that whole thing as a whole. And that's kind of what we're looking for here when we're trying to, in this chapter for like conflict strategies. And even though they are, like we said, complex and adaptable, we can easily simplify them by upfront showing the issues, discussing them, and rather getting rid of them than just staying focused on one thing. And especially if that one thing is negative, then we're going to have no positive outreach. And if we have no positive outreach, we're not going to be able to come to a conclusion as a whole. And yeah, that pretty much is the whole point of Salient Point as well. Just really trying to focus on the conflict, get rid of the negatives, add the positives, and push past that. Okay, so for this next slide, it's kind of important to also mention the sources we have and to really just give background knowledge into why we're using them. So right here for the Asana website, we have as a team lead, you want to build an open and inclusive environment where everyone feels comfortable bringing their full selves to work. So that's by Julia Martins, written in 2025. This shows that having a good relationship with others will create a friendly environment where everyone feels comfortable and non-destructive. Yeah, so if you don't feel comfortable in a situation where you're trying to fix conflict, then you're going to have no end point or end goal, and it's really just going to become stagnant, and you're going to get stuck on the whole thing of, hey, like, I don't really know what to talk about. And when that happens, then you're kind of just stuck on staying stagnant and really not having anything to work for. And then our second website we used was Amonit, and it was an article, the 5 steps to conflict resolution. So what they said was conflict can be stressful and everyone handles it differently. Working well under any level of stress is going to impact employees and their well-being. Resolving conflict at work means all parties involved feel heard and accounted for and can work with ease. So this basically says having a calm environment creates good work ethic overall. Your employees having good mindsets will reflect on the way they perform their work. Yeah, so if you want positive results, you're going to have positive people. If you have positive people, then they're going to be able to push for success. And generally, that's what we're just looking for right here, is having people that are going to really grow past just a normal being of staying in the conflict and everyone kind of on the same boat, I would say, on, hey, we got this conflict, but let's work past it, let's grow past it, and let's find ways around it so that we don't have to stay here and we can focus on other issues. And once those other issues pop up, they're going to have a routine already that's pretty set where they know to stay in a calm environment and they know how to have a good work ethic. And overall, they will perform very well in these stressed out situations that necessarily don't need to be stressed out if you know what you're doing, if your whole group knows what you're doing, and everyone that's a part of it, whether it's the mediator, whether it's the people that are accounted for, or even the leaders, all of them know what to do, then it's perfectly fine, and everything's gonna be fine when you just really put your mind to it, like it says in the reminder we have right here on the 2 sources.
So for the conflict that we experienced as a group was having little to no motivation. We have been working on this class all week, so it was very hard to end the class with a very hard presentation, a long presentation. So we had to give words of encouragement and divide the presentation equally. So we are all accepted with the outcome that we had, and that we're all going through it together. Another conflict that we had was one of our members left, so the second conflict that we had was one of our members leaving due to an emergency, and this resulted in us having to do the work early and think ahead instead of him not having a part. For our Q&A questions, our first question is, what is conflict management? Conflict management is the process of recognizing, addressing, and resolving disagreements in a constructive way that minimizes negative outcomes and promotes understanding. This means when you are having a problem with somebody, you want them to have an advantage as well as you want to have an advantage. You don't just want to have it one-sided, because that can result in destructive conflict, which is negative and not the result you want to have. For our second question, we did, why is conflict management important? Conflict management is important because it helps maintain healthy relationships and improves communication, reduces stress, and leads to better problem-solving outcome. If you have conflict management that